Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another one of my Dota 2 hero guides. Today we're going to be taking a look at Wraith King. So, Wraith King is a carry hero, pretty much only played as a carry hero, and I think he's one of the best carry heroes for newer players, mainly because a lot of his abilities are passive, and the ones that aren't are pretty simple to use. Not only that, but he has a pretty good laning stage. It's pretty simple and understandable what to do with him. He's obviously a strength hero, so he's tanky, and then he has a stun, which is really good in team fights and other things. It's always good to have a TP cancel for newer players and things like that. Also, he farms pretty quickly, and he can, be a very, very good late-game hero. He's not like the best late-game hero, but he can carry the game pretty well in the later game, mainly because of his abilities. He has a built-in crit, lifesteal, and also 2 lives built in, and we'll see all that when we take a look at his abilities. But basically, this hero is kind of a very all-in-one, very standard carry hero, but can go very late, is very powerful, can do a lot of damage, but can also kind of snowball the game as well and be kind of unkillable and just press down all the towers. So he's kind of your standard carry hero. For a lot of people, if you're new or you're Herald or whatever it is, and you want to play carry, I think Wraith King may be like the carry. It's like Wraith King, Lifestealer, maybe Jug, something like that. But even like when you compare Wraith King to Jug, Jug has a little bit more of a complicated toolkit with his heal, and he has spin, which is kind of like a BKB thing, and it's like, when do you use that? With Wraith King, it's pretty simple. His skills are straightforward. They kind of do what they need to do. It's pretty obvious when to stun. You stun whoever you're going on, and then when you have your ult up, you play very aggressive. When you have it down, you play pretty passive, and that's pretty much how you think of Wraith King. But otherwise, you do your lane, you use your skeletons to farm waves, which is really, really important, so we'll take a look at his abilities. But he's able to spawn skeletons, and usually you want to use those skeletons constantly off cooldown to spawn them and to usually send them towards a wave if you can. Now, it's hard to control them sometimes, but usually you want to push a tower and a wave with them and then back off to the jungle yourself. So he can split push, but he just doesn't split push with his hero. But it's also okay if the skeletons farm the jungle as well, but you just want the skeletons to be farming a different spot on the map than you are. And then, yeah, like I said, he just farms, and he can be a really big threat in the late game. He also plays more like a frontlining tank, like off-lane hero, because he does have 2 lives, and he is a strength hero. A lot of times, you're the one that's going to be playing up in the face of the enemy. So you're going to be playing like a bristleback or something else like that, and just playing up, saying, I dare you to go on me, I dare you to waste all your spells on me, and then I will, me and my team will return counter-initiate on you and kill you. So that is pretty much how you can think of Wraith King as one of these carries, a standard carry that I suggest a lot of new players play if you want to get into the carry role. So now we can take a look at his abilities and see how Wraith King's able to do that. So now that we understand what Wraith King does in general, we can take a look at his abilities and see how he's able to be that carry, that frontlining carry, that really easy to play carry for newer players. So first, we're going to look at his Q, which is his only really active ability. Now, he does have W, which is an active ability, but Q is the one you're going to be obviously using a lot, and it's really the one you're using in team fights, and it's the big ability that you use to stun people, and it's Wraith Fire Blast. So it's pretty simple. You just click it on somebody like this, and it just sends out a little, skeleton thing, a little skull. Has a decent travel time, so it is a little bit slow, but then once it hits, it actually does damage and stuns for a period of time. So that's pretty much Wraith Fire Blast. It's pretty simple, but I'm actually going to come back to that after I cover Vampiric Spirit. So basically this is just his aura that is his lifesteal aura, and this is pretty much just lifesteal for him. But the other thing that it does currently is that it allows him to spawn skeletons. So for every blast hits that he gets, every so often he'll you get last hits, and a little number will go above his a little buff will come up here. So we'll get a last hit here. And we see, I think I got 2 last hits already. So every 2 last hits, you get one of these charges. It's basically a Vampiric Spirit skeleton charge. And then once you get those charges, which each level it changes, and usually you want to use the charges when it's at max, but sometimes occasionally, if you're at a good spot where you can use it and it's like a couple, charges away from max, it's okay to use it occasionally like that. But then, once it's almost at max, you just click the ability, and then a little skeleton comes out. And the way that this works with your Q, actually, some newer players don't know this, is you can't really control the skeletons. They just kind of spawn and then attack whatever's around them. But if you actually stun a target within range of the skeletons like this, the skeletons will actually target that person or that hero, that creep, whatever it is. So that is actually one way that you can control where your skeletons go. Now, keep in mind, they will just like keep attacking this guy for a long time. They'll even like dive towers and stuff occasionally to keep killing this guy unless he goes out of vision and stuff. So just keep that in mind. But that's basically how you use this Vampiric Spirit. It's lifesteal. It just gives you this passive lifesteal, which is really, really good for sustaining and jungling and all those things. But then you also are able to spawn your skeletons with that, and then use your Q, which is your stun, to basically, control where your skeletons go. So those are the two spells there, and then the next one is Mortal Strike. This is a passive ability. It's basically just a crit. So you use it, and actually it goes on cooldown. So it's not just like a passive, chance to crit. It actually has a certain cooldown, and then once the cooldown's up, you get to use it again. So this is actually really good for last hitting in lane, because you can pretty much just like wait till it's on and then go up to the range creep, and you get a critical hit that there's pretty much no way that anyone can deny it. And then also it's really good for lane as well, because even if there's no creeps that you want to hit right now, you can just go up to the enemy, click him once, and then walk back, and you're just going to always get efficient trades like that because you have that critical hit and you know when it's going to come about. So it's really good for laning, and then obviously it's really good later in the game as well, because you scale with items and with damage and all these kinds of things, and so you can go different builds with this depending on the patch. So as always, follow the guides that are current for that patch for items and everything. But usually this hero as a carry gets some damage items like Radiance or Deso or AC or anything like that, and with this crit it makes him do a ton of damage. He can blow people up later in the game, because this is one of the better crits in the game, actually. It's like a very, very high percentage crit, and it's obviously very reliable. So it's a really, really good crit, and it's one of the reasons that it makes this hero pretty easy and simple to play. And then also we go to the ultimate, which is Reincarnation. This is also a passive. Basically, when this is up, when you have this available, if Wraith King dies, so we'll give this axe like a bunch of rapiers here, and we'll kill... Well, here, we'll kill the Wraith King, and we see Wraith King just dies. He gets basically an Aegis-like ability. Whoop, don't want to die again. He gets an Aegis-like ability, which pretty much just brings him back to life after a short cooldown. And there's like a slow that surrounds him when he does die. Now, keep in mind, the earlier levels of this have a very, very long cooldown. So if you could possibly get to level 2 before using this cooldown, it is very good. But obviously sometimes you're not going to be able to not use it. Sometimes they gank you, but it's a good way to like have your team turn around. So that's usually what happens is, they use all the spells on you. It's why you can frontline, because you can just go in, they try to kill you, they bring you down, but then you immediately respawn, and now it's a 5v5 again. So it basically makes every fight a 6v5 if everyone has even numbers. You pretty much have a free Aegis. And then level 3 is really, really good because it decreases the cooldown a lot. So you can use it like maybe twice in a team fight. And the last thing I'll say, I usually don't talk about shards and ags, but the shard on this hero currently makes Reincarnation have 0 mana cost, which is really, really important, because until you get the shard, this used to be a talent, I believe. Until you get this ability, there's a lot of heroes like Anti-Mage and other things like that that can burn your mana, and then if you're using your mana and you don't have enough mana, you can actually get caught without enough mana to proc your Reincarnation before you die. So that is something to consider for newer players, that until you buy that, which is something you probably want to buy almost every game, you have to beware of mana burn in the game, whether it's AM or any other, diffusal carrier or something like that. So just keep that in mind. But that is pretty much Wraith King. It's actually fairly simple. The only other thing to say is that when you do get skeletons, which I'll try to get a skeleton here, when you do get skeletons, basically what you want to do is, so I have skeletons now. If there's like a creep camp over here, I want to kind of walk towards the creeps in the lane and then spawn my skeletons. That way they kind of are aggroed to the closest thing and they go down the lane, and then I can go to the jungle and start jungling, and the skeleton will just keep going down the lane and then eventually hit the tower. And that's usually what you want to do. So like if you're, if it's later in the game, let's say 20 minutes, and you're on your off lane, the enemy's safe lane, usually you walk into the creep wave, maybe use your skeletons, and then just run back to the jungle, then run back to your triangle, so on and so forth. And that's pretty much what you can do. So That's kind of how to use your skeletons a little bit more in the game. So that is Wraith King. It's pretty simple, actually. And as such, you can use all of these abilities, like I said, to frontline, do a ton of damage in the game, and really carry. And I think this is a great hero to use, like I said, for new players, because they will learn positioning. They will really learn the basics of carry, how to farm, how to, maneuver the map, and all of those kinds of things with this hero. So those are his abilities, and now we can jump into a game and see how he can use them in a game. So now we're jumping in here to a replay of Wraith King, and it's Skitter playing Wraith King. And I just wanted to show you the laning stage very, very quickly. And one thing about this hero is, obviously I always say follow the guides, and I still say that, but you can kind of skill this hero in a very, numerous ways early on. And he does choose to go for the Q, for the stun, because it does allow decent damage, and there's also a slow component to it that allows for some good trading. And it also allows, if there is any kill potential at the rune or in the lane, it also allows for that. It allows for stunning the hero that is trying to go for last hits on the range creep and all of those kinds of things. And so that's a little bit probably why he takes the Wraith Fire Blast first. It just offers a little bit extra when you need it. But otherwise, you might go for the crit first. But then second, it's almost like regardless of what you get first, second, you're going to probably go Vampiric Spirit. And the reason why you go for the Lifesteal second is probably because, in most cases, because it just helps you sustain and lane a little better. But also, you get those last hits, and you get the skeletons for them. And one thing that I often tell new players if I'm looking at a review or something, or whenever they play Wraith King, is that the skeletons actually are way more powerful early than what you actually think. And a lot of people, they don't even use their skeletons really until later in the game, until they jungle or, past 10 minutes or whatever it is. But we'll see here coming up that he uses his 2 skeletons that he gets really early to chase down the lion here. And actually, if it wasn't for the fact that the skeletons get like trapped in fog, or they don't chase the lion in fog, they probably would have killed him. So if you look at right here, this is what he does. And he chases the lion with these skeletons, and they do a ton of damage. Now, unfortunately, if you just saw right there, the skeletons lost vision of the lion in fog, and they kind of just retreated and then went to hit the small camp, unfortunately. Otherwise, he probably actually would have killed lion with those skeletons. So that's probably a good reason to take the lifesteal level 2, because you get those skeletons early, and you can use them really aggressively. So that's the big thing for the lane, is using your Q, using your stun to go aggressive on heroes, but usually you use it right after you use your skeletons, so that you can get your skeletons to like attack a specific hero that you want, the squishier, lower armor hero that you're laning against, because early on those skeletons actually pack a powerful punch. And then obviously you skill 1 or a few points in your crit, so that you can secure last hits either early on in the lane or a little bit later in the lane. Like now it's a few minutes in, he's level 3, he has 1 point in each, because each skill is really, really good for the lane. And now from here it's pretty straightforward. Secure your last hits when you can. Obviously try not to die. Against Lion it's kind of a weird matchup. Lions are always so annoying because they drain your mana, but it's pretty straightforward. Get your last hits. If there's an opportunity where you have skeletons and you can go on them, do so. If there's an opportunity where you can use your crit to harass the enemy, do so. Otherwise, use that crit to secure those last hits. And then from there, it's pretty simple. And then once you feel like you can jungle or you need to jungle, you can always transition to that later in the laning stage. And then here, again, is just another great example of him using his skeletons and then just immediately making them aggro onto the enemy. And so you probably want to be using your skeletons in lane a little bit more than most people think. And then that's pretty much the laning stage. It's pretty simple and straightforward from there, and then you can use your skeletons to jungle, and you can jungle pretty quickly on this hero once you get a few levels. So if you're having a really hard lane, you can always retreat to the jungle. If you aren't having a hard lane and you're really dominating your lane, you can always stay in the lane, rotate between lane and jungle, and it's pretty simple on the hero because of the lifesteal and the crit and all of that. So anyway, that is Wraith King's laning stage, and now we'll move on to later in the game.
What did you expect?
So the next quick thing I want to show you is actually when to transition to the jungle. And sometimes it's more obvious than others, but this time is a pretty good example of he feels strong, he's had a good laning stage, but then he just gets ganked by the mid. And you might say, oh, why didn't he skill his ult yet? He's level 8. Well, he kind of knew that if he was going to get ganked, he'd probably get mana drained by the lion, and they would mana drain him enough that he would, it wouldn't really use the ult anyway. It's probably better to have, spells levels in the other spells. So, everyone rotates up now. The PA and the Magnus rotate up. They're trying to take this tower, so, it's not Wraith King's lane anymore. He was having a decent lane. He's wasn't really getting bullied out of it because Lion and Pango don't really bully him out. But now it's time to, leave that lane completely. And sometimes if you're having a pretty bad lane or you can tell these guys are going to try to kill you, you can always rotate to your jungle a lot quicker. But now that he died, he's like, okay, this lane is over, the tower's gone, I'm just going to rotate with my skeletons bottom. And you can see that Wraith King can take towers pretty quickly with his skeletons. His skeletons are extremely powerful at taking towers. He probably didn't even need to be there, honestly, in order to get that tower with these skeletons. So this is also a great example of how his skeletons can be used to push lanes, to apply pressure on the map. And now, you see, obviously, his skeletons are following him into the jungle, which is just a way to gain a lot more gold on this hero. And then his skeletons, you saw there briefly, wanted to go to the lane, but now once he got vision of this camp, they kind of came over here. So that's how you can decide where you want your skeletons to go, is they'll only go and aggro different creeps that they have vision of. They actually don't really know where creeps are. So you see they're going to the lane now, and now you see they're going up to this camp because he got vision of the camp. So that's kind of how these skeletons work. And so you should use that to your advantage to either push lanes or farm the jungle earlier on, like when he's lower level like this, to farm a little quicker. And that's pretty much how you rotate to the jungle. Don't always wait until you die in lane to rotate to the jungle. Once you hit like 7, 8, 9, whatever it is, or even earlier than that, if you feel a lot of pressure in your lane and you feel like, maybe you died once in lane or you can tell they're a kill lane, it's okay to go to the jungle a little bit earlier on this hero because he's so good at farming the jungle with his skeletons. So that's pretty much jungling mid-game, early game, and transitioning from the laning stage with Wraith King. So I just wanted to show you this clip. We skipped ahead a little bit. It's 19 minutes into the game. And show you this fight. Radiance is finally up on the Wraith King, and this is basically his timing. You don't want to fight at all until you have Radiance or your first item. Maybe it's Armlet or something like that. So the team, he pretty much goes in. They use RP on him and everything. And thankfully for him, his team backs him up, and they end up, killing the enemy, even though the enemy actually just got Aegis. And so this is like the power of Wraith King, especially once he gets his Radiance timing. He's very, very good at doing these kinds of things, baiting the enemy in to use a lot of spells on him, and then hopefully your team, backs you up. You usually want to go in with a team fight, maybe communicate with your team, because that's kind of the point. The enemy just got Aegis, and yet he ran in, tanked a bunch of spells, and then was able to turn around on the enemy, even though they had Aegis, because he was able to, use all of their resources with his first life. So that's the perfect team fight for Wraith King, and that's pretty much how you want to be playing the hero throughout the entire game. And also, like, up until this 19, whatever your Radiance timing is, maybe it's 16, 17, 18, 19, whatever it is, you pretty much don't want to fight until you get Radiance, or maybe you get your Armlet and another item, whatever it is. You have to wait until you get those 1 or 2 items early in the game until you want to fight. Other than that, you're pretty much just farming, so that's why I skipped ahead all this way, because this hero just basically farms until he gets strong with 1 or 2 items, and then once he has that, then you look to go in, then you look to be aggressive. And now that he doesn't have ult, you see he's just back to farming, and that's pretty much how this hero works. You pretty much farm the whole game up until, you get your 1 item, maybe 2 items, whatever it is, and then around that, 20-minute mark, maybe a little bit earlier, you can look to get involved. But if you get involved and you use your ultimate, because at that time it's going to be a long cooldown, after that you play completely passively. He is not going to look to get involved at all here for the next 20 seconds, or really for that minute or so that he was after that team fight. Now that the ult is coming off cooldown here in 10 seconds, he could look to get involved, but he still just, ideally wants to farm if he can. If he's, if there's not a good fight that he wants to TP to, he's not going to do that. So that's pretty much how to play Wraith King, and that's honestly how to play carry a lot of times in general. It's just very, very straightforward on Wraith King. You lane, you do as well as you can, you go to jungle when you can, you farm basically Radiance or 1 item or so, then you get involved, then you see, like I just said, now that he has his ultimate up, you come to a fight. If you use your ultimate and it's down, you play passively, you farm the triangle, you use your skeletons to push, other things like that, and you just rinse and repeat basically the entire game. And then that is pretty much the basics of Wraith King carry, and that's why he's one of, like I said, the simplest carries in the game. A really good carry to play if you're learning the role, especially early on. He's fairly simple. You don't have to worry about too much. You just have to worry about playing the basic carry role, getting your farm up, and playing, you know, to the hero's strengths, like I just described. So that's pretty much Wraith King, and that's my Wraith King guide. There's really not much else to the hero. He just plays like this the entire game, but he just scales with items. Really, the only skillful thing on the hero would technically be how to use your skeletons, and I already kind of described that a little bit, and then, you know, how to use your ultimate, when to go in and out, and those kinds of things when you have your ult up and when you have your ult down and all of that kind of stuff. But other than that, it's really straightforward like I talked about. So I hope that helps you guys. I hope that is a decent Wraith King guide for you, and you can play Wraith King in your games and, you know, get used to the carry role with that hero. And yeah, as always, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, like, comment, subscribe, all those kinds of things. If you want me to take a look at one of your replay reviews, just let me know in the comments, and I'll always do that for you. And yeah, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.